Welcome back. We're here yet again. Jerry's back this week after running around Metro St. Louis.
Yeah, being a good friend, buddy's car decided to die as they're way back from Kansas City. So get braced the Labor Day traffic, got him to safety. But here we are. College football is on the TV right now as South Carolina's beating up on
Yeah.
Virginia Tech. Man, we have a lot to talk about, but we don't have Trevor, which makes me sad because he's enjoying the Labor Day weekend, unlike us.
Yeah, so Trevor is out of town, so he'll be back next week. We talked about it last week. Me and Trevor, I think, are going to do a midweek show on Wednesdays nights, just to kind of give us a gap in between the middle of the week with a lot of football. Jerry works during that time, so maybe once often you may join us, but you'll have your opinions heard on there. We'll ask you questions and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so Trevor will be back for that. But yeah, he's enjoying this, unlike us. He was like struggling to find a TV yesterday.
Yeah, we were in front of ours. The group has a group chat. Obviously, we gotta make sure we get everything going. Me and Caleb sent the spreads immediately, and poor Trevor's like, "I'm listening to the game on the radio." And I was like, "Oh man, he did find a TV. Fear not." Trevor knows what's going on. He is not completely isolated to the world. Not completely. He knows what's going on here in this great week one of football and the breaking news, which rocks the NFL. I don't want to talk about it, but Caleb said we have to.
Yeah, I mean, so this is something that I have mixed feelings on this trade. So Micah Parsons traded to the Packers. The saga of him is kind of done and over with. Here, let me give his contract details real quick, and then we can talk about it. So he gets a 4-year, $188 million deal, $120 million guaranteed, $62 million through the first year, $100 million through year two, $47 million annually, which is the most for a non-quarterback by a lot. I think he now even gets paid more than Patrick Mahomes does annually. And then in return, the Cowboys got 2 first rounders and then defensive tackle Kenny Clark. So, yeah, a seismic move, a move that I didn't think they'd trade him. I thought they'd get a deal done. But I will just say, like, this clearly shows that the Cowboys didn't really want him there from like Jerry Jones's perspective.
Mm-hmm. And Jerry Jones wins in his world, in his kingdom. Now,
Yes.
everyone outside of the kingdom is screaming in different ways. If you're a Green Bay fan, if you're somebody that just hates the Cowboys, right? Like the city of Philadelphia and Green Bay have the same reaction to this trade, which is this is amazing because
Yeah.
not only is Micah Parsons out of the division for those teams, right? And he goes to a good NFC North, which as two Bears fans here, we hate this. I don't think that's really staunch opinion for me to hold on Caleb's head, but he knocks out for anybody that's not a Dallas fan. Love this deal, right? And it's not a huge haul. Like I get it, 2 first-round picks is a big deal, but when you have one of the top 5 players and at least top 5 edge rushers, I think that's very safe to say. But you could say top 5, top 10 players in the NFL. You make those types of moves. So credit, God, saying this out of my mouth hurts, but credit to Green Bay. I think they made a fantastic move and they got a guy. Again, his value is still high. There's no
Yeah.
injury here. Like there wasn't. If you want to talk about the locker room issues and all that, that's whatever. When a guy can do what he could do, he could be a problem. And again, a problem in the Dallas locker room is not necessarily a problem in a lot of different locker rooms in the NFL because Jerry Jones manufactures the issues that exist sometimes. I hate this trade for the fact that I'm a Bears fan. I hate this trade because it feels like both Dallas got fleeced and Green Bay got a lot better for a price tag that a lot of other teams could have also afforded, including the Bears. And I'm not saying, oh my God, the Bears screwed up by not making this deal.
Yeah.
But when you know that this was the value out there, so many other teams are also probably looking at this deal going, we could have done that. And this is a guy that's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing too. Is who else did the Cowboys talk to? Right, it is very similar to the Luca deal,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of like had their mind set on like Jerry was like, we wanted to get a defense attack because we needed to stop the run because that was their biggest issue on defense. Um, so I think that's what's interesting. I mean, this relationship kind of got to a point where, like I said, I just honestly think it boils down to the Cowboys just did not want him there. As crazy as that seems, it is just one of those things where they didn't want to deal with him anymore. They didn't want to pay him clearly that much money. They just paid Bland today
Mm-hmm.
4 years, $92 million. But I screenshot this from Jane Slater, who covers the Cowboys with NFL Network. She said that she spoke with Micah the evening of the trade. He said he's going to miss being a Cowboy. He says that him and his team went back to the Cowboys about an extension with empathy when the trade interest was leaked this week. The Cowboys' response to Parsons was play on the 5th year or leave. So basically, like I said, it just came down to they kind of in their mind said this guy is not worth dealing with, and we're going to move on, which is crazy to think. He's 26 years old. He's been a Pro Bowler, I think, every year in his career. All Pro twice. He averages like 13 sacks. It is very similar to the Khalil Mack trade with the Bears, in the sense that you get this guy that, like that's I think the biggest thing for Cowboys and Cowboys fans is no one like what the hell are they doing, right? Like you lose this guy, you get Kenny Clark, whatever, but now it's kind of like your defense was going to struggle to begin with, even with Parsons, maybe. You get rid of him, you trade him, you really have no direction. And now Jerry's just spilling off of like, oh, this makes us better and we didn't need him and we needed to stop the run and blah, 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 blah. Jerry Jones has struggled with, I think, from the fan perspective of owning the Cowboys for now the past, I would say it's gotten worse past 5 years. This is terrible because you could have paid him. When you draft guys, you want them to be able to stay on your team and have a second contract. Like you want guys like this. And to let a guy like that walk out of the door is just crazy to me. But yeah, as a Bears fan, it sucks because now you have to play him twice a year. The Packers have gone all in. This is not the usual Packers business. Drafting a wide receiver in the first round, going after, a guy like Micah Parsons. So they're going for it. They see their window. They have a team that they like, a coach they like, and they say, look, we're going to go for it.
Well, and again, for what they had to give up, not only are you're giving your chance to really put yourself into the mix, they didn't have to give up that much. Like we could compare this to the Luka trade. They didn't give away AD.
No.
And I get it. I'm not sure like that trade also was bad. And we talked about that plenty on this same podcast, right? We don't need to bear into that more, but if Micah Parsons is Luka, Texas and Dallas did not get Anthony Davis at least. They can't lie and say they got another guy that's an elite level guy to the level of Micah Parsons, right? And again, 26 years old. And and I have to look back at this trade, if these are both Green Bay Packer picks, this is a team that now has opened that window for a longer amount of time as well. This is not a super duper old team that's like, if it's not this year, then blow it up. They have Micah Parsons on a multi-year deal. Jordan Love, they'll get a deal going again. Like you said, Golden in the first round. This is a team that has a longer term window. Those first round picks are now 26, 27, 28, right? I hope the top 32, but it is what it is. Like you're not getting the top 5 guy. You're not getting a top 10 guy. And if you're going to use that for future picks, it's a first rounder. Yes, they are very valuable, but the 32nd pick from an organization that struck gold here with Micah Parsons, but isn't every year striking gold in the draft, is now trying to think they can score with the 28th pick. And it's like, what frustrates me more is he's at our rival for a price tag that almost any other team that's not our rival probably could have afforded to. And more kudos to Green Bay for pulling it off because they've walked themselves into a better life by not doing much. And the other thing for Dallas is you have 2 of your other stars signed through 28. So what are you doing in the interim? All right, Dak Prescott's not getting younger. I think he's 31, 32, but he has a couple more years left. CeeDee Lamb, your star wide receivers, is signed up till 28. It's like if you had any semblance of trying to do something right now, you've put 2 of your pieces there, and then probably the most valuable piece you let go. And you let go for, like it could be good, but there's no guarantee. Draft picks are great, again, but until you actually pick them, and there's no guarantee it's going to be good. It's not like the Cowboys are the team that always selects really well. We're not talking about them like their rival Eagles that every year just find a guy, and you're like, how the hell did you get to Philadelphia?
Yeah.
We don't say that about Dallas.
No.
So this shocked the world, obviously, like we said at the top. And again, the price tag for a guy like this, I don't think he's that much of a problem. You can't even give me that argument. It's not like he was everybody on the Packers like, we can't put up with him. Like this does give very Nico Harris vibes. Like, he was out of shape talking about Luka. Like I don't get it. And the fact that it's Green Bay, it hurts. It sucks, but a great deal from Green Bay. I have to give credit where credit is due. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is if there are some people that would complain about the price tag, like, oh, you're paying him $47 million compared to the other guys that got money this offseason from a pass rusher perspective, he's 4 or 5 years younger than them. So he's now coming into his prime where those other guys, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson, they're all they're 30, 31 years old. They're at that point where it's like, okay, we're giving them this money based off of what you've done before, but we're kind of scared of giving it to you because we don't really know what's going to happen. Compared to Micah's like 26 years old, coming to his prime. He's on a team now where it's all about football. That's like what the Green Bay people have said is they're like, if there were problems in the locker room, he's only got to worry about football here. It is go to work, study football, play football, do your job, and you're going to go home in Green Bay and just kind of relax. There's no more distractions. It's all football. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see. Let's get to some comments. There's a lot of comments here. There's a lot of Lions fans in the chat here. So let's see what they're saying. Luke Hoxie, 630 for the 20th time. Hunter Kimball says Parsons is soft. Look, I mean, he played for the Cowboys. Maybe his demeanor changes. I think that will be interesting. Packers take over the Bears spot for offseason champions. Wow. I mean, look, if that means their offseason champs don't do much, it'll be very, very interesting. Dallas took, what is that word?
Exodurn
for their massive
Thanks.
Micah headache. I mean, I've never even seen that word in my life. Creepy photo, Nolan Mark. Jerry putting money into those cheerleaders. Can't complain. It's a fan. Need him to pull Dan Snyder. I mean, look, there may be some Cowboys fans that want to try and get him out, but I don't think that's going to happen. Is there a tip tap for the stream? I don't know yet. And I'm not going to read your other comment, Nolan.
No, just ask his cousin Candace about it. That's fine.
Oh, nice. Look at you.
Yeah, it's okay. You got to know people.
Oh, okay. As now we move into college football week 1 here, viewed as one of the bigger week 1s, I think, in the history of college football. We had the main game at noon. Some people said it was like watching paint dry. Was not very exciting. But this game at 3:30 was very, very exciting to watch. Florida State upsets Alabama. And I'll start this by, they were like, this is like a monumental upset. It's crazy to think that this was a big upset when you have Florida State playing Alabama.
Yeah. This game was just fascinating to me in so many aspects. First of all, shout out Tommy Castellanos going into the preseason being like, we got Saban, we'll be fine. And then backing that up, not just winning, but he played really, really well, which just adds on to this. And I know for Alabama fans, it's an absolute nail because literally if that's a Saban-led team, that pregame speech was going to be next level. And it's just the transfer portal giveth, the transfer portal taketh away. I think that is what Florida State embodies this so well. And when you look at the last 3 seasons, 2 years ago, they're fighting for a playoff spot. You can argue they earned that playoff spot with a team heavy in transfers, again, in the state of Florida, which is crazy. But this transfer heavy team goes right to the doorstep of the playoffs, is the big piece of controversy. One of the reasons for playoff expansion goes on that playoff series and the selection there. Next year, they bring in a bunch of new guys, including DJU, a player a lot of people know. They have one of their worst seasons in modern history, and then come out the next year, bring in a new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, 18 new pieces, and then stunt a top 10 team. And that top 10 team did not look like a top 10 team. And it looked like the rankings were reversed. And that was what has impressed me is so much as you brought in so many pieces. And really, again, if you would have told me what I think Bama was ranked 10, 9 or whatever off the top of my head. Yeah, 8. And you tell me that Florida State's 8, Alabama's unranked, and this is the score and how this game went, I'd believe you. And there are so many different ways and there are so many different games you have to get to. But this was the one that was the most shocking because it did not seem like these were two teams on the same pedestal and everything was flipped. Florida State looked like that team that is looking for a college playoff run. Alabama looked ahead. Their moments. It's week 1. I don't want to be like, this is the dynasty over. That's a terrible idea to do week 1. But they did not look like a top 10 team in the country. They did not come out that way. And outside of their first scripted drive, On offense, they did not play that way.
Yeah, I mean, it goes. I will say I've never seen a team who was 2-10 bring back their coach and have the energy of like a new coach. Like it was like Mike Norvell's first year at Florida State is what it felt like. Just from the energy in the stadium to just the way that they played. Yeah, Castellanos, I mean, he commanded that offense like he had been running it for 10 years. It felt very, very similar to Cam Ward when Miami played Florida last year, where he just kind of walked in there and it was like he was the only guy in the field. He just went in there, did his thing, played, worked with the offense. Gus Malzahn, you have Auburn fans probably asking, where the hell was this guy at? But that's what happens when you just get to focus on offense. You don't have to worry about everything else. But yeah, for Alabama, look, you don't have Nick Saban anymore. It's clear. That was clear last year when you lost a couple games you shouldn't have. This game, I hate to say it, was very similar to the Michigan game in the bowl game where they kind of got pushed around. Line play was terrible. They were undisciplined. Like at Florida State just kept running past the defensive lineman would get in the backfield for Alabama, not sit in their gaps and just run right past the running back or the quarterback. They were undisciplined. Everything that we growing up saw and thought an Alabama team should be and was going to be, this is the complete opposite now. And now Kalen DeBoer is in that tough spot where there was already talks coming into the season. If he doesn't make the playoff, he's out. Like, does he have to win the championship, to keep his job? And I think now he is like 4-4 versus teams he was double digit or at least 2 touchdown favorites over, which I think they were like, I think the line ended up closing at like 14.5 against Florida State. So this was just one of those games where Florida State came out ready to play. They wanted to prove something. They were more physical than Alabama on offensive and defensive line. And their offensive line was like 4 guys were all transfers, new guys. So completely shifted just the thought process of what we thought Florida State could be, where maybe, hey, they went 2-10. Hey, maybe you come back, you have a nice year, you go 7-5, 8-4, you figure yourself out. Now they come in week 1, they beat Alabama, and everybody's like, whoa, how good can this team be? And now for Alabama, you go back and you go, we have a lot of stuff to figure out. They have a very talented roster. There's no doubt about that. But they're just not – it's not being utilized the way that it should or could be.
And I think the thing I'm very curious about long-term with Bama is not even the defensive end. I get it. If this is going to be Caleb DeBoer's program, it's not like Caleb DeBoer has successfully been a defensive coach. He is an offensive guy. He's an offensive guru. That's what he's been known as. He was the Indiana OC when they had those good years under Penix. Of course, he brought Penix with him to Washington with Ryan Grubb, the now offensive coordinator for Bama. What was so fascinating to me is their offense looks stalled. Brian Williams did not play that well, and I get it. It's week 1, so I try not to. And this is not even me trying to be like, oh, the SEC, this and that. Week 1 SEC was terrible for the most part. But that's not the point I'm trying to get at as much as it's so early and we don't have a lot of data points. But the fact the offense wasn't as advertised, I should say. Ty Simpson looked okay. He had some okay moments, but didn't look great. His offensive line didn't look great. His receivers looked fine. If this is what Kalen DeBoer's program is supposed to be, and you're only putting up 17 and you're getting scored on 30, that's not good. This is supposed to be, if you're going to have bad defense, that's fine. I want this to be 45-42, right? That's the program that Kalen DeBoer is trying to run. And again, that undisciplined stuff is just so wild to see in the Crimson Tide. It is something we grew up seeing with Saban, well, there's a great videos of them beating a team 52-0, and he's still yelling and calling timeouts at the third squad. Like, you don't have that going right now. And I try not really week 1 to overreact to anything because there's so much of the season to go on. There's so many moments that will make us reshape our perspectives. But this was just surprising, the most surprising game, because I go back and Alabama did not look like a top 10 team. Florida State did. And checking my priors for both these teams beforehand, that was the most stunning to me. And for anybody who thinks that Kalen DeBoer, not Caleb. Caleb's for free. Kalen DeBoer is getting fired. His contract buyout right now is $63 million. If it goes to December 1st, it's $60 million. They ain't getting rid of him just yet. But Jimbo costed $70 million. Texas A&M did it. So check the price of oil, I guess.
I mean, it just depends. Alabama, I mean, Nick Saban was crying when he was there about money and how they had to pay more, so I think that's what's interesting is now with the landscape also of the new wave of college football, it's evened out. There's money at other places now. There's a lot of money in the Big Ten schools. I think that's why the Big Ten's had very much success. But this isn't like Alabama's lost talent because of the transfer portal or NIL. They have a talented team. They're just not playing like it. And there's a lot of things to figure out. And look, frankly, what happened is they got smacked in the mouth. They came out first
Mhm.
drive, they scored, and then after that, they kind of got smacked in the mouth, and it was unexpected, and it was much, much different than what we're used to seeing. But look, this is the new era of Alabama football. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but when you lose a guy like Nick Saban, who's now on College Game Day, you lose all of this, discipline and just the simple stuff, the tackling, the sitting in your gaps, and just the small things. You lose it all. But yeah, I mean, you can't really overreact, but it's more of I would say, an issue if you lose week one in the SEC, just based off of what kind of the SEC schedules look like. Like, Alabama's schedule doesn't get any easier now, because most people thought, hey, they'd win this week one game. I mean, they have to play Wisconsin week 3. How's that going to look? Are they going to get punched in the mouth there? Who knows? You got to go to Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou, Tennessee, at South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, at Auburn. So, I mean, that's the thing is now
Mhm.
it's like, okay, yeah, it was non-conference, but wow, that's a loss we didn't really expect to have. And now you got to kind of move on and figure yourself out. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I didn't think that they'd lose. I thought when Florida State muffed the punt, I said, okay, here we go. They're going to win this game. Didn't end up happening. So shout out to Florida State. Mike Norvell, like I said, I've never seen a coach that had such a struggle completely flipped it in the first game of the year, making it seem like he was a brand new coach.
The Norvell era is fascinating to me, and he's one of the many coaches that I constantly kind of keep an eye on because of how weird he is. I've always found it weird. He's not a big time recruiter. Again, in the state of Florida, at Florida State, like that's usually you bring in a lot of kids. No, he's
Yeah.
very transfer portal heavy, but that's kind of defined his era at Florida State. And you've had very high highs and very low lows. This is another high moment, and it makes the ACC title run and the ACC look a lot better, especially after the game that took place right after on the same network.
Yes, that is
Throwing
very
in the
true.
ball.
Look at this
Throwing in
guy.
the ball.
Look at this guy. He's just like he's gone a week, and look at he's still here. Look at him. He never left. That's right. To your credit, SEC had not done well yesterday. Up until this point, Texas lost. We'll talk about that game in a little bit. Alabama loses. LSU notorious under Brian Kelly for losing these games. They played big games week one. I mean, I give them credit. They have done that all 4 years he's been there. They have played a big game, and they've lost the other 3. Well, they won yesterday. They beat Clemson at Clemson, Death Valley Junior. I guess you can officially call it that. They beat them 17-10. This is one of those games where for this game and the Texas game and Ohio State game, we're very much like defense is ahead of the offense right now, still trying to figure themselves out. But for Clemson, I don't get it. Is you have so much talent on that offense. You have a quarterback who is talked about maybe being the first quarterback taken next year. That now shifts after last night, but they just looked like deer in headlights. They were not ready for what could happen to them at all.
One of the things, especially week one and early in the season, is you don't put too much into the scripted drive. The first drive, even sometimes second drive of the game, your offenses look really good, and that requires for these top tier teams that are playing in big games. For the Missouri Tigers who played Central Arkansas, the first drive and sometimes even the second or third, you don't take as much stock as you do later in the game. What surprised me the most about LSU in this game was the later this game got on, the better they looked. And it's usually, especially early season, when we're still figuring things out, people and pieces are coming in, you kind of get rugged. And that's what happened to Clemson. Clemson, at the start of the game, looked real good. They get that first touchdown. They had the running back barrel over the LSU guy. It's 3-10. But as soon as this game got tied, the game just switched. And you saw LSU look more comfortable. They looked like a team that had been just working together. Garrett Nussmeier was making better reads, making better throws. This is a 24-10 game. That touchdown they took off the board, I very rarely try my best not to talk about refs. I really don't care. It happens all the time to every team. They get screwed some way, somewhere. That was one of the worst calls I've seen in a while. But it didn't even matter. And that is what has impressed me most about LSU was first, as the game went on, they got better, which is a huge sign because everyone has their week one jitters. Everyone kind of has their moments, right? But as the going got tough, that is when these Brian Kelly teams have usually floundered, especially in these season openers. That's where the trope comes in. You have Brian Kelly punching the table, all this other stuff. They looked better. And Clemson started to falter like most League One teams start to do, and they never picked it up. And the thing that is also going to scare a lot of other SEC teams is the fact that Blake Baker and the LSU defense looked legit. That has been the other thorn, is that Blake Baker is a very aggressive defensive coordinator. When it works, it works. They're going to blitz you a lot. They're going to bring a lot of pressure. If you figure it out, you can score. That is what's happened to some of these teams, these past LSU teams that get into shootouts. This week, they beat up on Clemson. And Clemson's a good team. And I think one of the things that's been awesome about this week one is, you said, Caleb, it's been billed as one of the better ones we've had. These games are going to be used as reference points, but they don't kick anybody out of anything yet, right? Like, if Alabama figures it out after this week, they get punched in the mouth, they respond. I would look at that Florida State game and be like, well, that was week one. They got better. Look at this moment. Clemson can go undefeated from here, right? Like, these things are all possibilities, which makes these week one games not feel like oh my God, Clemson lost to LSU. They're not in the 14, So I love that fact, but LSU impressed me. They're the team out of all of them, maybe outside of Florida State, that impressed me the most because they looked polished. They looked ready. They did not make the same mistakes that have cost them years past. And I really attribute it to the fact that out of all their guys, Garrett Nussmeier looks like the senior quarterback. He was making the right reads. He was making really good throws. And it felt like whenever Clemson got on offense and Cade Klubnik was there, it's like, they're not scoring. And that's a little bit on Blake Baker. That's also on Cade. I did not feel the same way with Garrett Nussmeier and LSU. And this is still a dogfight. That's the best part. It's a great week one game. LSU, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, this is from Carter. Carter's an LSU fan. I'll just give you a heads up here, Jerry. Brian Kelly masterclass last night, his best route through he's had as a coach. Yeah, I mean, it's without a doubt his best team at LSU that he's had. The one thing and I hate to compliment Brian Kelly, I do, but the one thing he was always good at Notre Dame was making adjustments on the fly. And that's why his name was always brought up in the NFL because, you have to be able to make adjustments on the fly. And I will say he did that last night, but he also looked much more comfortable than I've ever seen him in a big game like that. And, he did his typical yelling and his face got about as purple as his shirt did a couple times, but he very muchly he was comfortable. Like, the moment never got to him. Sometimes it felt like at Notre Dame or the other big games he's had at LSU, sometimes the moment got to him or he overthought something, but he was more relaxed. Garrett Nussmeier is a strong, tough SOB, man. Like, that guy just stands in there, keeps slinging the ball, does what he needs to do. Their line play, to me, when you look back at it, it started with the line play. Klubnik was kind of running all over the place all the time. Garrett Riley is the offense coordinator for Clemson. That guy, and I get his brother's Lincoln Riley, and he was at TCU when they went to the national title game, right? He was their offensive coordinator. This guy, I don't get it. Like, I literally do not get it. Like, run a screen every once in a while. Help your quarterback out. Their final play, they needed 5 yards. And they didn't have a guy run a route that was less than 8 yards. Like, I didn't understand it. Look, Clemson's done this before in the first game. They've looked bad, and then they've kind of figured it out. I believe they'll figure it out. I agree with you. Week one is like, can't overreact, think much into it. But it's one of those where now you're looking at the SEC and you're saying, whoa, this LSU team is much different. I expected them to let Clemson score and tie it up and we'd go to overtime. And that did not happen. So it's very, very interesting. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those games where it's like, you waited, and LSU kept making the plays and Clemson didn't.
I go back to the end of the third quarter. That was the moment where I thought this game would shift. And this is where the LSU touchdown / 1 yard reception gets reversed to an incomplete pass. I think it was like a second down. They screw up on third down too. And then they go for the field goal and their kicker just miffs it like terribly. And it looks like the kicker's hurt and they go into the third quarter. I think they settle the lead at this point, or it's a tie game. And I'm going, oh, this is where it hits. This is where The Clemson moment hits. You know, they don't do what they're supposed. Like Clemson finally scores. They get all the momentum. LSU flounders. Yeah, it's a crap call, but you deal with it, right? But it didn't happen. And instead, LSU came down later. And again, I was really impressed by Nussmeier. I know he's a good quarterback, but these are moments where you have to shine if you want to win these close games. And he did. He looked like the better of the two. I'm not even going to go Riley versus, I don't even know LSU's offensive coordinator off the top of my head, like that type of stuff. But like, he just looked like the better player. And the quarterbacks are a big topic of this discussion in going into this game, right? Klubnik, Nussmeier. A lot of things happened this week when we talk about quarterback play. I think Nussmeier really put himself forward as a guy that's going to get a lot of Heisman watch, a lot of Heisman looks. He wasn't the preseason favorite, though. He played in Columbus, and they didn't do as well.
No, they did not. So I will quickly, before we get there, there's a bunch of comments on this thing here.
Oh,
so,
Lordy. Oh, no.
Toby Castle, yes, if you're at the goal line, bootleg it. Oh my God, the play calling was dreadful. I don't know what he's talking about in that game. Bootleg, I don't remember that. But yeah, to me, the play calling was dreadful. Hunter also, same thing, boot line at goal line, whatever. Hunter, why do you hate to compliment Brian Kelly? He's a terrible neighbor. I mean, he's not a great neighbor to have. Drive by his house every day, never waves back. Is Brian Kelly a top 3 coach of all time? Maybe in Division II. He's got a much more complete program in Baton Rouge rather than in South Bend. Yeah, I mean, look, he can get talent easier. It's taken him longer to get LSU figured out than at Notre Dame. But we'll see as time goes on. Marcus Freeman smiling at this. Now everybody's arguing with each other. Marcus Freeman painting that hairline right about. It's a beautiful hairline. It is beautiful.
You know, it does say something for my LSU friends here that as we compliment Brian Kelly and we talk about Brian Kelly, that your first thought is Marcus Freeman is not a good thing. The standard at LSU, and LSU fans should be agreeing with me on this, is you win a title.
Yeah, it's
you
very
know
true.
that the last couple of coaches, that's been the thing. You win a title at LSU. That is the expectation. That's the standard. And I get in the new college football playoffs, it's even harder to do. There's more challenges. But again, yeah, you could talk about how Freeman has a more complete roster, or not Freeman. Brian Kelly has a more complete roster, has this and that, but the standards changed.
Yeah.
You go to LSU, there is no academic concern. There is no, we're in the Midwest. Anything you could think of that is going there is now gone. This is the standard. They're supposed to win games like this. And it's a good thing for LSU that he is. He's doing the things he's supposed to. This is why they went and made the splash higher. Like you don't pull a guy and pull that money and make that type of splash if you don't think it's not going to backfire. And that's what LSU's AD does. He's very aggressive on hires, like a Kim Mulkey, right? Like this is a guy who will bring in talent, right? He was also the same AD that brought in Jimbo at Texas A&M. Not afraid of the splash hire, but this is what you're supposed to do. And this is where, again, we love week 1, right? We're talking about it. It's like, this might be the Super Bowl. This might be the college football playoff, right?
It's over.
And
give them the championship
week 1.
now.
This is awesome. This is what we are here for. We appreciate the comments, But I know we're going to talk about a big Midwestern SEC battle, fake SEC, but this is the standard at LSU. You're supposed to do this.
Yeah, I mean, and also where the standard of championships is also in Columbus, because they have the championship as of right now, and they defended their crown yesterday in the shoe. Number 1 versus number 3 anticipated. Arch Manning. Oh my God, Arch Manning. Oh, this guy. Everybody's talking about him. He's supposed to be the next great one. It's in his blood. Literally, it's in his blood to being great. And then you got a little old Ohio State with their 100,000 fans. Championship banner being shown off. Championship coach. 5-star quarterback. Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, and they said, look, we're still number 1. We're still the big dogs. And this was one of those games as simple as this. Ohio State was ready to play, and Texas wasn't. That's exactly what it was. It felt like that. Ryan Day, ever since that Michigan loss, they felt different in how he's kind of ran this program a little bit. It's crazy to think that. And I didn't know if it would carry over. I picked Texas to win, and I didn't know if this would carry over. It carried over. They were ready to play. They took this challenge on, and they just said, hey, we're going to go out and play ball, try and beat us, and Texas could not do that.
This is the most out of the 3, the game of inches. That was literally what this came down to. Multiple fourth down stops from OSU against Texas. The game-winning score, mind you, is an underthrown ball that Carnell Tate makes an absolute snag for. That's the one deciding play score-wise
Yep.
that gets us there. And I get it, that was for 14-0, but as Texas comes back later and scores 7, like that was your separator. It wasn't like a wide open pass. No, they had to work for it. Like, yeah, it wasn't the offensive spectacle that some might have assumed, but these were two teams that, if I'm going to say anything, will probably meet again. And I'm going to be honest on this. Both quarterbacks didn't really impress me.
No.
Like, I know everyone's going to be on the Arch Mannings, not this, not that train. Okay, that's fine. Again, that's week 1. I think Sane was better, but if you're comparing him to the guy who threw the pick in the game, and barely threw for 100 yards, sure, right? Like, but what Ohio State did is they won the inches. They won those small plays. In a game like that, that matters. It's kind of funny. You're watching two coaches that you still don't really trust as much at the big moment. Ryan Day, I could trust significantly more after the playoff run than Steve Sarkisian. But I'm sitting there like, I feel like the most part, they're pretty even coaches at times. But Ryan Day is slowly, maybe it was that Michigan loss. I don't know if that's it feels like the spark point, but he has just been a different coach after that. And a lot of credit here. You lose both your coordinators before this game. You lose Chip Kelly, you lose Jim Knowles, you have Matt Patricia on the defensive end, you have a Hartline on the offensive coordinator end. And I get it, Hartline's receivers coach. The receivers were good, not great. Like Jeremiah Smith was fine. But it's like,
for his standards, fine.
I will refrain from too much because I was getting mad at Joe Klatt. I thought he was really drumming down the Jeremiah Smith train a little too much in this week 1 game. But like, when you win those little moments, it matters. And for Ohio State, they don't have as crazy of a schedule. Yes, they have the target on their back, but they showed they can win ugly. And that's been kind of one of the concerns, is if they're not in a shootout, if they're not the better team, if the game gets ugly, i.e. all the Michigan games the last couple of years, how do you respond? Well, Texas ran the ball a lot. And okay, Texas offensive line didn't look that impressive. Their defensive line was just all right? But like, this game was a very old school Big Ten game, a couple yards, not a lot of explosive plays. And again, your final, I think what was so encapsulating is the game-winning score was a not great thrown football that your wide receiver had to really work for. And the defensive player for Texas put up a good challenge. He just lost.
Great.
It was good defense, better offense moment, but not by much. And that moment encapsulates this for me because it felt like two teams at a very similar spot, that you needed one moment, and Sagan gave it to you over Arch Manning. Do I think Arch Manning is the biggest bust ever? No, right? He still threw a touchdown. And once they kind of simplified things, especially later in the game, and it's like, hey, go, you start to figure it out a little bit. So that should give you some hope if you're a Texas fan. The questions about Sark in a big game will continue. I think that is valid. But the hard part for me with Sark in Texas is that for a long time, Texas has been this program post-MAC that has the world of expectations. You have all the money in the world. You are in one of the hotbeds of recruiting. You are the state institution in Texas. And in Texas, football means everything. It's bigger in Texas. It's a Lone Star State. They don't make a magazine in any other state for high school football, right? Like, there's all these things that ride on. And Sark's been the first guy in a while to finally bring Texas back to the, oh God, they're good at least. But not this 8-5, lose to inferior opponents, people they don't see on their same pedestal. He's got them back there. But now, kind of like with LSU, the standard is the championship. You're expected to win. The fact that Sark is winning, people have forgotten all the years of mid. They've forgotten all those other problems. They're like, well, we should be beating Ohio State. And they should. That is the expectation here. And what's going to happen if Sark doesn't get them there? Even though for at least a decade, this has been a program that has been a sleeper. And even if you don't want, I hate to say that, but for a team like Texas, that is, the standard is winning, he's got him back there, but he's not doing it in the big games. So my question comes with him is, what do you do with a guy like that who's brought you back to where you're supposed to be, but will not get you to the point you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really weird. He's not very good in big games. I mean, to bring up Joel Klatt here is Joel kind of hit it on the head though when he talked about Sark's offense. He goes, "This does not even look like a Sark offense. There's not a lot of motion. It just doesn't." He goes, "Usually if he's sputtering, there'll be a play to really kickstart it going, like a reverse time. They didn't do that till like the third quarter." Look, for all the people that are selling Arch Manning stock, I'll buy it. In moments, he looked like he can play, right? I mean, it's week 1. He's still trying to figure himself out. I don't think that Sark gave him it's some in the first half. It didn't really feel like they had a whole lot of confidence in him. They didn't want to it was like a car you buy brand new. You don't want to get any miles on it. You don't want to get a scratch on it. That's kind of what it felt like. And it just felt like it was like, just let the kid play, sling it around, try and figure it out. Ohio State's defense it's a much different defense. You still have Caleb Downs and a couple other guys, the linebackers in that, but they talk about Matt Patricia, maybe some NFL stuff, and is it a more complex defense? But yeah, it was one of those games where you're waiting for something to happen. You're waiting for something to explode. And, the only really play that was explosive was the Carnell Tate one. I go back to Toby, who commented earlier with, goal line plays. The first goal line play for Texas was maybe one of the worst plays I've ever seen. And Sark's forgotten more football than I know. But just from looking at that, where all the guys for Ohio State are lined up at the goal line, right there in front of the center and 2 guards, and you're going to run right into them, get Arch Manning on the move, maybe roll him out, run a little flare to the running back, which they had success against Ohio State in the bowl game doing that. Yeah, it was just one of those games where, it was going to be the first team that makes a mistake, and that was Texas. And Ohio State just kind of petered on, played their game, and just kind of let Texas make the mistake. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and this is where I'm, if anything, impressed with both programs in my mind, is that this was a battle. It felt like at any moment it could swing. Both these teams highly respected each other and their game plans and everything they did. And again, it is a 14-7 game when you have 5 stars on both sides of the ball. I know Arch Manning didn't look that great. Julian Sayin looked fine. He's the more accurate quarterback, in my opinion, right? He threw the ball more accurately. It doesn't mean he didn't throw for 300 yards and absolutely torched the Texas defense. He made his own set of mistakes. Both receiving cores had moments that could have been better. Like the first 4th down conversion, this is where my Joe Klatt concerns hit. And I like Joe Klatt for the most part. I don't want to act like I'm just hating on him for nothing. Is Sayin hit the tight end in the hands, perfectly thrown ball. And he just dropped it. And it was that's a 4th down. Turnover on downs. They come back from break or whatever. And they're like, look, Jeremiah Smith's open.
Wide open.
I'm like, dog, he hit him in the hands. It was a good throw. He just missed. This is not oh my God, we have to feed this guy. He is that good. I will admit that. I'm not acting like he's not the central point of that offense. He is. But that's where I was impressed at Sayin for the most part, is a lot of the throws he made were pretty good. They were solid, and he didn't make the mistake. And this team last year won with a quarterback that was good, not elite. Will Howard, we can argue maybe he was elite if you really want to, but it's not like he was the 1st-round draft pick. He's not Cam Ward. He wasn't any of the guys taken off the board early, and you see why. He was a fine quarterback with really good pieces. And Julian Sayin did the exact same thing, and that's all they need him to be. They don't need him to be a superstar right now, and that's okay. And he did everything they needed him to, but both of these teams have a really bright future. This looked like a 1 versus 3 matchup, and especially in week 1, that's awesome. And again, the fact that both these teams still have a very realistic chance to go out and about and make things happen if they figure out their cards and play them right, it makes these games just that much more awesome, because we got really good ball, and it's not Texas is over. Can't go to the playoff now. The Ohio State loss will tank them. No, if they figure it out, they're fine. And I go back to that a lot with this week 1 slate, because that was the reason these big-time early games never showed. It was because it's Texas has a good team. They've now played Charleston Southern. Yeah. It's no, these guys will play each other. That's awesome. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, this game was very much, I think, Clemson and Georgia played each other a couple years ago, and it was 13-6. And everybody's like, what the hell? It's exactly what it was. On to, real quickly here, another big game, moments away from kickoff here. You didn't really get to talk much about it last week. You gave us your pick of Notre Dame. But why are you, or did you change? Has your mind shifted now?
I'll stay with Notre Dame. I've been very impressed with Marcus Freeman. The rain here makes this even more fun because, as you've probably seen on your timelines, I know there's a
Torrential,
lot of Notre
torrential
Dame
down.
folks. Yep, we got some Florida rain here in August, in there, so that's gonna be a very interesting early game. Another quarterback making their first start for a program, CJ Carr winning the job, versus a guy who's making his first start for a program but has a lot of experience in Carson Beck. Um, this is an awesome game. Catholics v Convicts, a lot of history here. Doing it in Hard Rock, that's just cool. I don't. Both of these teams, I think, are both very good. I'm curious to see what Miami does post Cam Ward, and I'm very curious to see what Carson Beck looks like with better weapons. I think that he had at Georgia, a really good offensive line that Miami still has for the most part, and decent receivers. I've been told, Caleb, you know better, that the Notre Dame receiving core is not completely terrible this year. So I'm very
No,
curious to
much
see
improved. Much
I'm
improved.
curious to see CJ Carr takes advantage of that. Um, and I just don't trust Mario Cristobal still. He's a very, very good coach. I want to make that very clear. He's been a fantastic recruiter out of anything, and he's brought the talent standard back to Miami that Miami's been begging for. But he's cost his team games with bad decision making. And Marcus Freeman has impressed me in those tight moments, especially in the playoffs. He pulled that like weird fake punt against Georgia and all those little things. That's why he gets NFL buzz, similar to Brian Kelly. He's a very good adjuster. He's a very good coach in those moments. So it's a tight game. It's a fun one on ABC. You guys previewed this. I don't have much more than that everybody else has here outside of that. It's going to be a good game, and I'm glad we have these awesome Week 1 matchups. Catholics v Convicts, again, a lot of history, a lot of fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good one. I think this game was supposed to be played at Notre Dame like mid-season. It was switched to Miami opening weekend. I love that. You can't really tell, but I have the Jeremiah Love card that me and Creepy Photo Nolan Mark pulled. I'm showing it off for good luck here. Hopefully, Jeremiah Love has a massive game. In the sloppy weather, that should help him a lot. But yes, Miami has a very good defensive line, very good offensive line. I said it when we talked about it last week, me and Trevor. It is going to remind me a lot, I think, of the A&M game last year, opening game. And I think Notre Dame's going to make the play when it needs to be made. Um, I wasn't nervous until like 2 hours ago. I'm getting a little bit more nervous. But I will say in the expanded playoff now, if you lose your first game, look, it can help you more than it hurts you from what we've seen in the past, from like when we had two with the BCS or we had four teams. So it's going to be a very fun game. Hunter here says squad ride, J Love first, Notre Dame money line
Not gambling
touchdown.
advice. Not
Not
gambling
gambling
advice.
advice. We're terrible gamblers. I have our picks real quick before Jerry has a spotlight here at the end. I went 3-4. Trevor went 3-4, and you've gone 0-2 so far.
Not shocking.
So there's still 2 games left to change it up. Maybe I'm 4-4 now with Virginia Tech losing, and Trevor's now 3-5 because he had Virginia Tech. I had South Carolina.
Yeah. Lenore Sellers, very good.
He is very good
Told you
in
guys about
moments.
that. I want that to be known. Even if my picks suck, my ball knowledge is still there. I told y'all Lenore Sellers is good. But Lenore Sellers is one of the guys Missouri is going to be playing this year, and we're going to end tonight honoring a guy who covered the state institution and the area around it really well. This is a tough one. This is my friend, former sports director and broadcaster and teacher, Ben Arnett, subtly passed away. I know it's a sad note. Bear with me. Poor Caleb has to sit there and nod his head while I do this. This was a tough one. We still don't know what happened, but this happened right after, at least the news came out right after Mizzou beat Central Arkansas, a game that Ben was expected to be at least to my knowledge. Usually, obviously, he's covering these types of games, be at that. And happens the week before, sports-wise, one of the biggest Missouri rivalry just in general, the border war coming back after over a decade. I know Ben was working on some really big pieces for that. He brought a lot of people back to Channel 8. The reason this hits so hard in the Columbia community, obviously tragic, a man 43 years old that has been covering the area, at least in the sports director role for 5 years, is a Columbia native, Columbia, Missouri native, went to high school there, is a Hickman grad. And for those who do not know, Channel 8 is the channel where all the Mizzou journalism students, especially in the TV world, get their cut. It is an NBC station, blah, blah, blah. It's what I had to pay all that money for. But it is one of the perks is that you work with these professionals, and Ben was a fantastic professional. He was a man who grew up here, covered Missouri athletics within the program for over a decade. before taking this job. And this was a dream job. This is, again, a guy who grew up there, taught so many people that I know. He took over the job right when I was still in college, taking on for Chris Trevino, which is a longtime Missouri journalism legend. He's still on the radio side, etc. And he touched a lot of lives. He's one of these guys that when I flaunt my state institution is one of the backbones behind it, because he's a great man, a great person that teaches us lessons, taught me lessons, and taught so many people lessons, not just about the industry, but as how to be a grown-up, how to be an adult in this world, how to balance the challenges that this brings. And I pray deeply both for the people I know at Channel 8, that community, both those who have gone on like me to bigger places, better things, to that professional world, but also the people still there, professors who knew him as a friend, and other professionals there who knew him as a colleague and friend. This is absolutely tragic. I think about his family. He had a young daughter who he absolutely loved taking to sporting events. It was something that you'd share plenty, and a lovely wife that they had a house there. There is a GoFundMe that exists somewhere around here for this. But he will be missed. And one of the reasons I have the privilege of being Caleb's friend, and I say this unironically and no hyperbole, was a guy like Ben who made me a better journalist, gave me the chance to go to South Bend and work a year under the Notre Dame show. The countdown to kickoff, as you guys know it, whatever it's called now, is beyond me. But that is, one of the ways I've met Caleb, and I've gotten this chance to do something as small as this, which is a small podcast, to talk about sports. And a lot of those lessons I learned was from Ben. And I know I'm not the only one hurting. I know I'm not the only one thinking about it tonight. And it's crazy. We're in high school football season, something that Ben and all the sports directors took so much pride in. And again, the Missouri's biggest game that's coming back, if I remember, he was either a student or a young professional when that last game, when Missouri's in the Big 12, took place. Finally, the completion of this long wait takes here, and Ben won't be on the sideline for it. And that's heartbreaking. It is tragic. It is sad. Again, don't know what exactly happens at that moment, and we'll find out when we find out. But I just wanted to share my appreciation and thanks, because this is one of the many people in that school, in that community, that would answer your text when you need it, when you had a question. When you were in Columbia and you screw up, they tell you how to fix it, and there's tough love there. There's tough love everywhere. But I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am right now without community members like this, like Ben, who was a leader there and a leader in our sports department at Channel 8. He'll be sorely missed. And, I love that man. I really appreciate that. And Caleb, again, sorry you had to sit there this whole time and just nod your head and try not to smile too hard, but this was a tough one, especially, again, and I keep saying it, Mizzou's big matchup coming up. This would have been a guy who would have been such a great resource to explain the importance of this to Missouri and Kansas athletics. That will be sorely missed in such a tragic way. So we miss you, Ben. We appreciate you. That's all I got. I don't want to keep doing this to you, man. I can't leave you doing it.
I mean, you can tell, the way you talked about him, that he had a massive impact on you. And I'm sure, he had a massive impact on a lot of others. Prayers out to his family, everybody there in the Mizzou community, and everybody surrounding it. Him at the station. Look, I know from working at a TV station, there's a lot you have to go through, but you build forever bonds. And, sometimes it's cutthroat, it's hard, but you build those relationships that are forever impacting. And you get to know people who you look up to, you work with, and then you end up becoming friends with, which is a really cool business to be in. And yet again, thoughts and prayers out to his family. And I mean, it's one of those tough situations, but I'm sure that they'll honor him the right way. And hopefully Mizzou beats that team that you guys are playing.
Team out west, but again, it's just really tragic. I mean, if you think of sports, you think of guys like this that build your foundation both as a fan, but in my world as a professional. So we're thinking about his family. There's a GoFundMe that exists that you can just I do not want to implore anybody to feel like they have to spend their money to do so, but this is the one that hurts in the Mizzou community specifically and the sports world around, because I think the lasting impact of Ben, and we can end on this, and we'll go on to next week and that midweek show. That's a lot going on here in this world that there's to be excited about. And the thing that will excite, I think would excite Ben in this next past here, is knowing that his impact is felt beyond here. that this is just one small example of all the different journalists and people that he has gone on. There are so many great friends I have that worked in the same sports department that are on to bigger and better places. I'm going to flex a little here. Thanks to Ben. I have friends in ESPN. I had friends at that week 1 game there in Kansas City. I had friends at the Ohio State, Texas game. And that's not because I'm cool. It's because guys like him and that state school that I still live in here, really work hard and go those extra hours and those extra moments to do. And Caleb knows this, Missouri people brag about their state school, and those journalists don't shut up about it. But it's people like this that are why it's so hard to be quiet about it, because he was a great man and a great leader. He taught so many people so many things. In one of the most intriguing sports departments. Imagine you talk about the transfer portal, every 6 months, this guy gets a new sports department. He has to figure it out. He gets a couple seniors, but every 6 months, a new semester, there's a bunch of new people there. So he could have handled the transfer portal better than some of these college coaches nowadays. And he did. And so, the memories I'll have of Ben are always fond. I just can't stop thinking about his poor wife and kids, his daughter. But we're thinking about him a lot. We're caring about him a lot. And I know his legacy goes far beyond Channel 8 off of Highway 63 in Columbia. It is literally all across the country with all the people he's inspired, worked with, and been a mentor to. So rest easy, man. We miss you. You've been great. Love him, man. We can get out of here. I can't keep doing this all day.
Yeah, no, like I said, the impact that he had, it shows. It shows. The impact he had on many. And yeah, you're right about the Mizzou thing, but it is warranted. You guys are built different down there. That is for sure. With that being said, Jerry brought it up. Me and Trevor will be back midweek Wednesday night. And then, as always, thanks for watching.